Hey guys, welcome back to the Legion's Lounge. I am your host, Andrew of the Cardboard Cohorts YouTube channel, and with me is Taylor Howe, the CEO of Future Lore Studios and creator of Legion's Realms at War. Taylor, say hello to everybody.
Hey guys, how's it all going? Welcome back.
And we also have Matt Waller. He is the producer of the Legion's Lounge podcast. Matt,
how's it going?
Back.
Welcome back.
And then tonight we have, for the first time on the show, our very first guest, Patrick Watt. Patrick, how's it going, buddy?
Good. How's everybody tonight?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
It's been a long day, but we're here. We're doing this episode 2, and kind of getting the word out there about Legion's Realms at War. One of the best TCGs out there, and personally for me, my favorite TCG. What do you guys think? What is this? Obviously, we're all here. This is probably everybody's favorite TCG at the moment, correct?
My favorite TCG. I haven't dabbled in many others though, so.
You're a virgin player. Rectangles.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Well,
if it means anything, it's my favorite TCG.
Says Taylor. Well, of course, I hope so. It is definitely now my favorite TCG. It has been since probably about March of 2022 when I started playing, of course, in January. But March is when it really hit for me, where I was starting to understand it and liking it. And I come from playing TCGs all the way back in 1993. I started as a kid. I'm a little bit older, so I've been around a little bit longer playing TCGs. So I'm not sure how old Patrick is, or if he's been playing as long as me.
I've been playing TCGs for a while. I did get out of them for quite a few years, but Legion's got me back into it, which says a lot.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, what drew you away from TCGs?
Well, so I used to play a long time ago. It's when I actually first met Taylor, because I knew Taylor prior to Legions, playing Yu-Gi-Oh.
Okay.
That was, 8 years ago?
I was gonna say almost a decade.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But yeah, just Yu-Gi-Oh sort of got to that point where it just wasn't really as fun for me. I actually got out when, what was it, Link Monsters became a thing?
Same time I got out of it, yep.
Yeah, that's also conveniently when I stopped.
And then, I played Magic sort of on a kitchen table aspect with some friends and stuff over the years, but nothing really competitive. And then Legions came out and got me right back into the swing of things.
Nice.
Actually, funny story about that kind of origin story with myself and Pat. Like I said, Pat's been a friend of mine for a long time. I even knew him before he married his now wife. So we've been around the block once or twice. Yep. And one of the things I have to say is that, back in all those years ago, playing a different card shop than we play now, we used to play many games of Yu-Gi-Oh competitively with each other, and it was actually, Pat is the first player to play Legions outside of my initial best friend that helped me test and get the game off the ground. Pat is the first player to actually play Legions outside of him and outside of my tester Malik and I. And that was that story you've heard before of the playing. But we did a test. I did a tester game in a dim lit subway in a small little town. But outside of that, at an actual game store, Pat he can probably recall it better than I can now after all this time. But backwards Yu-Gi-Oh cards in sleeves with little pieces of scrap paper with me writing on them, and that was the origin of Legions. And Pat played it with the Orc deck then. He played the Orc deck then when it was just scraps of paper, and he still plays that Orc deck today.
Nice.
Sure do.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was actually, when you think back on it, it was actually funny because, like, when Taylor first told me about it, it's just like, oh, that sounds actually pretty sweet. I should take a look at that at some point if you're cool with that. And we just sort of got together the one day, and I'm trying to remember, like, I think we ended up being out like almost all night. Card shop closed, and we moved to a Tim's.
Yep.
Right, and we're playing in a Tim's, and he's like, so, like, what deck do you want to play? Like, he names all the legions and stuff, and it's like, let's try orcs. Let's go with that one.
So I'm curious. So you've been playing. So you got to play Legions, and literally it's like infancy stage, right? So how flawed was it back then? I'm sure there had to be some issues and flaws with it because it's been what, Taylor? You've been working on the game for 8 years, 10 years, you said?
Yeah, this now that we've completed our first full year. Yeah, we're coming up on 9.5, almost 10 years now.
Jeez.
It was. I'm sure there was a lot of going back to the drawing boards and stuff like that back then when you first initially played it, Pat. Right?
Oh yeah, I definitely like even like if I think back then compared to now, I feel like playing it then on pieces of paper in backwards Yu-Gi-Oh cards was probably like what people would consider extremely broken in the decks right now.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
Right,
so cool,
right.
man.
That is sick though. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
One of the things I think Pat can second on this one is particularly with the Orc deck. The other decks changed names a lot, but the Orc deck, the names that you see on the cards from the starter Orc deck is the same names the cards were, 8.5, 9 years ago when Pat played it with me.
That's sick though. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So Pat,
like Sharn is still Sharn. She stayed with me all this time.
That's awesome. So Pat, so your Yu-Gi-Oh was a game that you started off playing TCGs, I assume, correct?
Yep.
Nice. Okay. I started myself with Magic the Gathering back when it actually first came out.
Oh, wow.
I was one of the yeah, I'm an old man, so yeah, I was playing it way back then. But and it's funny because I've talked to Taylor about this, and I think we've talked about it on our YouTube channel when I first started streaming. How much I actually love Magic the Gathering, and it was my favorite TCG, and how I never thought anything would be better than that game. And then Legions kind of found me when I needed it most. And it did what I thought no game would do, and it replaced Magic the Gathering for me as my favorite TCG, which is a lot because I've been playing that game for a very long time. So it has to say a lot about the game if it took me away from a game I've been playing for, almost 3 decades. That's crazy.
So we've talked about like the past of Legions. What would you want to see in the future though?
Is this a question for Pat? Go ahead, Pat. You're the guest, man.
In the future,
Mm-hmm.
more Orc cards.
Well,
That's just sort of me though, right? Because like I have a bit of a love for Orcs.
He just wants a whole set of nothing but Orcs. Like a
That would be
350 card
that
set
would
of
be
Orcs.
amazing. I'm sorry, but that would be amazing. It would be.
Pat's the pure green screen.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking just sort of in general, like those that know me know that I like playing aggro style decks, right? So
Yeah.
with Legions, like we've seen some of the new warlords, couple spoilers so far since spoiler season started up and stuff, and I'm curious to see what other decks may be a little bit more on the aggro front, and what decks even further than that potentially see a little bit more on like the aggro front, just as like my style of play.
Which ones you can make aggro?
Pat. It's funny you say that, Pat, because I feel the same way. Because, like I said, coming from Magic, I'm a very big aggro player in Magic. Mountain cards, red all day in Magic. But that is one of the things I'm looking forward to. That's the thing with Legions. I can't figure out what I want to play. A control style deck, an aggro deck. There's just so. It doesn't seem like with only 8 Legions, there's a lot to choose from, but there really is, and they all play different, and you can build them multiple ways. So it's hard for me, just getting into the game, within less than a year, trying to figure out what my play style in this particular game is.
No, 100%, right, and that's where I think one of the great things is like each of the legions aren't sort of locked into that legion only plays like this, and we're going to see those legions that currently play like that play differently, right? So it'll be interesting to see how those legions play into those different play styles as their own legion, right, with their styles.
Yeah. That's Matt, what are you interested in the future?
Honestly, I'm just interested to see like the world like built out further.
More of the lore. Interested in the you know?
Exactly, yeah, like actually like understanding the lore bits, because I know pieces of it, but it's like I want to
Dude,
see the story like all fleshed out in my mind, you know?
let me tell you, I don't know if Taylor's made this privy to other people. I'm sure he has, because Taylor's just an awesome guy. But when he came down here to the Tennessee for the 5K Siege series at Guild Vault Games, um, he was talking to me and Samuel Graham, another content creator, about the Elysian rares and exactly what they are. And like it blew my mind to where I was like, I need you just to send me more. You know, I need to know more about this lore, and that's one of my favorite things about this game because the lore is so in depth with this game.
Oh, 100%.
And that's one thing I have to say is the fact that like the thing I'm most excited for is to keep going, right? That's the number one thing for me, right? Like, yes, this is my career and this is my passion all in one, but ultimately, it's a matter of this storyline and these characters have been with me for so long that they feel like they're a part of me, and I just I want to share that with everyone.
Yeah.
I think I have this I know I have this rich world, 9 realms, right? Full of characters, both primary characters and secondary characters, even tertiary characters that become a very important part of each storyline.
Yeah.
That there's so many moving pieces, and that makes it the most challenging when it comes to the lore, because ultimately it's a card game first, right? And
Correct.
I have to make sure that the cards function and they play properly, but each set is built to be lore driven. So some more than others, obviously. When we started with Ravaged Lands, we kind of just dropped you right in the middle of the storyline. The war was already taking place, and to me, I've never been great when it came to stories about starting at the beginning or building out an end.
Oh,
I
you
always
want to
felt,
you want to give us a little Star Wars action where you start at the
yeah,
at the end, and then we circle around back to the beginning.
yeah. I've always been a big fan
I do
of.
too.
I
I am
spend a
too.
lot of time studying film. Like that's what my background is. So, to me, the most important part of the storyline was the meat and the potatoes, the middle part of the story, right? Um, because if you drop people right in the middle of the story, what makes it so involved is that there's not this origin story. There's no long segments.
Exactly.
There's no build
It's
up.
it's
You
Darth
drop them
Vader,
right.
bro. It's
Yeah,
Darth Vader. Like if you would have started the Star Wars with his origins, you wouldn't have cared. But they started with this mysterious character,
Exactly. And then
and
it, like,
you wanted to know more about him, but they never went back into his background until later on. And you're like, okay,
exactly.
this is awesome, because it gave it more of a mysterious, what's going on, and that's what I do like about how you did Ravaged Lands. Just kind of
Yeah.
boom right at the war. That's very
Well, and that's
cool.
the thing is, it just like Star Wars did. They established arguably the most iconic big bad character in media history, right? Everyone, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, know who Darth Vader is. So the thing is that they created an icon. They created something, but even better, they created a masked icon. You didn't know who was behind the mask.
Right.
You didn't know his motives. You didn't know why he was evil. You didn't know why he was doing what he was doing. And because there was so much of that mystique around him, he became this dominant presence. And that's where we felt we wanted to kind of translate a little bit into Legions. Was the War of Ravaged Lands the most important war? No. And will it be the most important war? No. But the thing is we drop you right in the middle of the fighting, right in the thick of it, with the 8 most important characters to begin with, because those characters were the basis of my storyline, right? And when those 8 characters are all dropped in the middle of this, you play as that warlord, and you're in a position where you don't know who's your ally and who's your enemy. You don't know who you can trust and who you can't, and you don't know which realm is safe to fight in or which realm is safe to find sanctuary. And that was the chaos that we wanted to ensue right off the beginning, because what happens is you get into that kind of, in a storyline, you get into that fight or flight mode, and you're like, okay, like Pat did, you latch onto a legion, and you're like, he says, I'm Orc, and I'm going to follow Sharn right to the bitter end, right? And that creates this really authentic attachment to characters, and that's why film franchises last so long, because you can latch on to a character and you empathize with that character, you understand their feelings, and as that character grows, you grow with it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we really wanted to do with Legions by dropping you right in Ravaged Lands. But because of that, there's so much of the story beforehand that's not told, and there's so much still to be told. Right? So we had
Is Pat, are you a fan of lore, or could you just care less about lore?
I enjoy the lore. Like when I think lore, it's like I just want to see or hear more of like Sharn's brother as Azul, or Sharn's mother Decimaya, who's the back of the cards, right? So
Well, yeah, Decimaya is cool, man. Like,
she's sick.
Yeah. And
right, so
obviously we all know what I'm waiting for in the future. I mean, I talk about it all the time in the Discord and on my channel. I'm obviously stoked about werewolves, man. So I could care less about anything else right now except for werewolves.
Dude, werewolves are coming soon, though.
Yeah,
werewolves are coming soon.
But Taylor's been sitting here, starting at what was it, December 8th? You had started dropping spoilers, and we've seen some cool stuff so far, so I'm pretty excited. I mean, because we got the Kickstarter starting in January, so it's gonna be pretty awesome.
It's gonna be amazing.
Next year's gonna definitely start out with a bang.
Oh, yeah, 100%. For sure.
Well, we're starting off next year with our biggest and best set yet, right?
Yeah, new everything, man. New Guardians, new Warlords, new synergies. I mean, anything
shaking up everything.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's going to. We could sit here and talk about the meta, but there's really no point because we know it's going to change the game 100%. You're not going to go into a tournament knowing probably what people are going to play, specific cards because the demon deck's going to have set fire to the world. This is going to shake up the game quite a bit, I think.
Well,
exactly.
I think the biggest difference walking into a tournament is you sit down across from somebody, and before the game starts, you only have to really show off your warlord, right? So it's like you see a warlord, and it's okay, cool. I'm playing against demons, but it's not okay. I'm playing against demons, which means I need to expect these 3 or 4 things out of this deck. It's I'm playing demons, and okay, which demon warlord is it? And is it a crossbreed between the new cards and old cards, or is it just new warlord, old warlord? Like, there's so many things you have to consider.
What synergies now are they going to use?
What guardian are they using? Like, there's so many different things that play into it now.
Exactly, right? It could be like you could build an entire, I don't know, Seraphim deck with Castiel.
So so Legion's Realms at War, like we were just discussing Star Wars, how it reminds, the lore, how you started at a certain place. It reminds you of Star Wars, but Legion's Realms at War reminds me of Star Wars so much in so many different ways because Star Wars was one of those movies that nobody wanted to touch when it first came out. Everybody was kind of like, we don't want to produce this movie. We don't want anything to do with it. Like the actors are paid really nothing at the time. And Legions has had that slow growth, but when it boomed, it boomed. And I think that with Empires on the Rise, that's what's going to set Legions off to make it that game that everybody says, yes, I gotta play that. I need that game.
Oh, 100%.
Well, and I think that's that's another big thing is the fact that there's always a misconception that with Kickstarter, especially in the past 2 years after the COVID spike with Kickstarter, Flesh and Blood came along and didn't use Kickstarter, but they proved one thing to the world, and I think that's a really good point, is the fact that they proved to the world that another alternative game can exist outside of the big three, and they blazed a trail, and they smashed the doors wide open for a lot of us.
Flesh and Blood was smart in so many ways because they picked up what Magic the Gathering decided to drop, which was tournament play. And that made them, during it, especially during COVID, when nobody could actually sit down and play games at stores, half the stuff wasn't open. and your game was successful, that speaks volumes. And you know, I hear the people, you know, everybody has haters. I have them. I just got, you know, ostracized and, you know, called out on my Discord privately by somebody. We all have those haters where they're like, oh, you know, I thought they were naturally growing. Yeah, Legions is naturally growing, but there's also, you have to use every tool to your advantage. And Kickstarter right now is just a great way. You know, it's not free marketing because, you know, you are going to get feed for it. But what Kickstarter can do for games by getting the eyes on it and the name out there is what Legions needs at this time. And it's not because the game is not interesting or fun. It's because you guys are in Canada, and it's hard with a small staff to be able to expand over to the US. So what better way to do that than, you know, launch on Kickstarter and say, hey, check this out, check us out. Because you saw, you know, I won't say anything. I don't say anything negative about other games, but there is another game had its big championship tournament. It had 34 people in it. And Legions came to the United States for the first time ever. Right after it turned a year old.
Mm-hmm.
And we had half that in our LGS already. We had 16 players. So,
well, and at Nerds Cafe, our flagship store for our first 5K that we did just last month before attending Guild Vault in Tennessee, we had 22 players at Nerds.
Mm-hmm.
And then to finish off the month, when we got back from Tennessee, we had 18 players at Atlas, right? Yeah. And now those numbers might not seem very high, but at the same time, when we launched a year ago, 1, nobody had heard about us. 2, we were still in the middle of partial lockdown. 3, we were a game out of Canada. So that was never really a thing. And we came out, and our very first tournament had 37 people in attendance.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Our follow-up tournament for our launch for Ravaged Lands had 36 in attendance, right? And we host monthly Battle for Glory tournaments at Nerds, and we get anywhere from 13 to 17 players once a month at those bigger events. Meanwhile, our weekly events at Nerds and Atlas are seeing anywhere from 8 to 16 players regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I just think speaks volumes, you know?
We see that growth. And yes, it's small, and yes, it's growing, and you know, it's growing naturally. And like you, to comment on what you're saying there, Andrew, I think a big thing is the fact that people often look at Kickstarter as a black eye, or they look at Kickstarter as something that could be detrimental. It could give you false numbers, because if it gets super hyped, then maybe most of them are collectors, investors, or flippers, and they're not really people that are interested in the game. Yeah. And regardless if that's what we get or we don't,
yeah,
like you said, it's a tool, and we want to make sure we use all the tools available in our toolbox, especially being outside of the United States.
Yeah,
that we want to reach as many eyes as possible, even if that reaches the people who are typically just collectors, investors, or flippers, because it's not going to affect our print runs. We're still a small company. We still have moderately small print runs. Mm-hmm. So the way we look at it is, whether we make our funding goal or whether we make 5 times our funding goal, it's not going to affect our print run, because our print run is going to be printed to what was needed, and that is it, right? We're not going to see, oh, this was super successful on Kickstarter, print triple the amount of boxes. No, we're not going to do that, because that's not a real number.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't show a real number of players.
Well, also what we discussed, Pat, I know you weren't able to make it down to Guild Vault for the tournament, but Taylor, Paul, and AJ, and Rye Guy, and Josh, thank you. It was coming out. They came down, and what I was telling Taylor, Pat, is we've only had 16 people in the tournament, but here's the problem with where we live. As you guys know, I'm a military veteran. I live in a military town. We have one of the biggest posts in the United States here at Fort Campbell. The problem with players is they rotate in and out so much because of deployments, because of JRTC, because of classes, whatever they have going on. At that 16-player tournament, there was at least 6 to 7 people that are normally there that I did not see because they were gone due to those things. I also had about 6 other players that were supposed to be there, but unfortunately I took the hit on this. I took the blame for this. I did not meet up with them when I was supposed to drop off some product for them to get familiarized so they could come to the tournament. It just, I had so much stuff going on because I was trying everything to promote the tournament. You know, I know that it sounds silly that it gets exhausting hitting up Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all these social media sites all day long. It literally does mentally drain you to where you just get so exhausted.
Oh yeah, big time.
It does,
I'm
right?
working on top of it. I'm raising 4 kids. I'm a husband. So I've got all these things going on in my personal life, you know, and nobody asked me to do these things. I do these things for these games because I love them and I'm passionate about them and they bring me joy. So why not pay it back?
Well, and the fact that you're doing this on top of a full-time job says a lot, right? And it's definitely got to be tiring then. Like the company I work for, like we have 3 people whose full-time jobs for my company is just dealing with social media.
Yeah.
Right. Like for one company is 3 people's full-time jobs.
Yeah, it definitely gets exhausting because you guys see my posts. I'm pushing that stuff out. I'm creating slideshows. I'm doing everything I can to promote the game. And I just got so tired that our schedules didn't meet up. They're like, well, I can meet at this time. I'm like, man, that's like my, I'm old, man. I'm going to bed at that time, you know? So I could have had probably 6 more players, but I can guarantee you, and you can quote me on this right now. And if I'm wrong, on one of my streams, I'll let you guys choose for me to do something embarrassing. I can guarantee at the next tournament at Guild Vault game that we have, I bet I could put 30 people in that tournament easily. Because I already have some things cooking. I have some people that I can get to help me with this and that was the other bad thing, that tournament was held Thanksgiving week, which people are out of town. They're already taking leave. They're already going on vacation. Radio contacts, news contacts, people that I know are gone for the holidays. So I have tools that I can use. They just weren't available at the time. But that says volumes too, that you picked the time here in the US during our Thanksgiving week when it's chaotic and we're busy, and we still had 16 people show up for this tournament. That still speaks volumes, man. That's still amazing because that's a busy time for us here in a military town.
Well, yeah, and that's something like, you know, we try and be cognizant of. Yes, we're Canadian, right? And so we have a different, like, we have our Thanksgiving in October. So we have to be cognizant of when we go down to the United States that they have different holidays and different schedules than us. And we were working with Guild Vault as closely as we could. Joe, shout out to him. He's a phenomenal guy. His team there at Guild Vault has been really positive with us. And we working back and forth with him, trying to figure out a schedule that works best for us and with him. And the hard part is that he has, you know, we're working around schedules with the game store that have other releases. So when you have Magic pre-releases and you have Pokemon releases, right, their budget gets tight. Their time gets tight when they're trying to plan tournaments and stuff like that. So then you add the holiday on top of that. So we picked the best weekend we could within our schedule, within theirs, when we could get down there, when we could support it, when he can host it. So, you know, unfortunately, it was the weekend before Thanksgiving, but that was the best time we could do it without pushing it into the holiday season of December. Right?
Yeah,
exactly. I mean,
all right. So Pat, I have a question for you, buddy.
Yeah.
What is your favorite set so far? I mean, we've had 3? We've had
favorite set?
Yeah.
Ravaged Lands.
why is that?
Yeah. Why?
Well, Taylor might laugh, but Viseria,
Yeah.
number 1.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the box art after all.
So, yep. As most people know, Viseria is sort of my thing. She's my babe for orcs. And then just Ravaged Lands, like a lot of the cards in Ravaged Lands were big cards for orcs. But then, like, second shout out to Frontiers, because Frontiers pushed orcs higher than they already were. Definitely gave a lot of pieces that significantly helped the deck.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll be honest, dude. Frontiers is an amazing set. I loved it. But I have to agree with you. Ravaged Lands, hands down, because you have to look at it this way. Without Ravaged Lands, we wouldn't have Guardians, and we wouldn't have these, special synergies that we could use. So the gameplay, without the Guardians, you kind of need the AP and stuff. So I agree. I think Ravaged Lands was probably my favorite set as well. And now that it's out of print, it's, if you got Ravaged Land stuff, you're pretty lucky because it's out of print now. They're not reprinting it. So
And I think something about Ravaged Lands is it gave us like the key pieces, or not like key pieces, but the like the notable pieces, right? Like the Void Hollow, the Twilight Gardens, the End of Days.
It gave the pieces that people will always remember now as those are those sort of staple cards, if you will, right? Of Void Hollow and Twilight, right? It's those are cards people are always looking for if they don't have them, or they expect to see them in the competitive scene, right? Because those are just those staple cards as they've become from how good of a card they are.
So it's funny. I'm gonna go back to when I first started playing. So I had bought a box of Ravaged Lands after Future Lore Studios has sent me a box after I told them pretty much I didn't like the game. They sent me a box and I opened it and I actually pulled a Guardian, a Hero Guardian, and I didn't realize what it was at the time. Because I had no idea what I was looking for. Because coming from Magic and some other TCGs, like it's hard trying to figure out what these new key ingredient cards are. So I wasn't really sure what it was, and I sat around for like 2 weeks, and I had that Guardian in like my inventory and had no idea. And then I just stumbled upon it one day. Me and my son were playing. He's like, "Wouldn't it be cool if we had a Guardian?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So then he's like, "Well, don't you read?" And I was like, "Obviously, I don't." And he because he was reading like all this stuff, and we started talking about Guardians. I was like, "Oh, okay." So we started flipping through cards, and I found that Hero Guardian. I was like, "Oh, well, let me throw this bad boy in there," and it definitely does help change the game a little bit for sure. When you can use the AP and stuff, and you have like those consume cost cards. So I have to agree. Ravaged Lands is probably my favorite set as well.
I mean, you still get like 30 AP even if you don't have a Guardian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, of course. Yeah, but it's still cool to have the. I mean, it just looks cooler to have the Guardian right there, man. Right?
Well, they look great, number one, but number two, they also have those after mulligan effects, which depending on the Guardian can definitely change things up.
Yeah.
Right, and then they
100%.
have their own consume abilities on top of that, right?
Yeah. So
Well,
do you have a least favorite set then, Pat?
Me myself,
Yeah.
Personally, which I know I've spoken with Taylor about this before.
You're gonna say the same thing I am.
Bountiful Harvest.
Thank you. Me
I don't
too.
get why though. I like Bountiful.
So Bountiful as a set of all bounty, I get its aspect. I get why it was put in there, but me as Taylor would call it, as a bit more of a purist, I don't play a lot of bounty cards.
Me neither.
Right? I like my deck. I'm playing orcs. My cards are green. I'm playing orcs.
Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
I get that Corsair of Despair, as we're aware, is going to be coming, which is going to shake things up as well. Right, from what we've seen of that so far. But ultimately, like, Bountiful Harvest was one of those sets where it's really the couple best things that came out of it is Serena Sada, Viviana, so the two Guardians, right? And then you had some Bounty Realm Warriors, which, you know what, aren't too bad for splashable in some decks. But then you had the two cards that see play in every deck now of Mist and Welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
Right.
It
has those staple cards that came in it that see a lot of play in some decks.
It also had 5 necessary reprints from the starter deck.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Yes, it did also have those Dismantle, deflect, right? It did have some of those reprints and stuff for the bounty cards from the starter decks, which makes sense. But it wasn't really a set release that just sort of fit with a theme sort of feel, right? It was just, here's bounty cards, you can use them however you want in any of your decks.
I'll be honest.
Ugh.
I've bought a lot of, me and Caleb and Opal, we've bought a lot of Ravaged Lands and Frontiers. Like I even bought a box when Taylor and everybody was down for the tournament, and I didn't need it. I just bought it because I was like trying to feed my Legion's Realms of War addiction.
Well, so when Frontiers were released, I started with a case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well,
and I've bought more boxes since then.
Andrew has 4 kids to put through college, so he ain't got that kind of cash flowing around. But I'll be really honest, Bountiful Harvest, I think I only bought 3 of those. I was feeling the same way. I don't play a lot of Bounty Realm cards, so it wasn't anything that I personally needed for my decks.
Well, and so this might make you feel a little bit better there, Andrew, but I personally have not bought any Bountiful Harvest.
Oh.
As unfortunate as to say, because I do really try to support Legions as much as I can, but this was that whole conversation me and Taylor had of Bountiful Harvest for me as a set was just not something that I felt I needed in order to play the deck I want to play, right?
Right.
Which is why as a set I wasn't really a fan of it. And so like personally myself, I just didn't see viably for myself to spend money on that set when there was nothing in it specifically I was looking for.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can respect it. It's kind of like there's always going to be with every game a set that you're not a fan of. I mean, I know Magic the Gathering last year had a lot of sets that I could care less about personally.
And that's bound to happen, right? And that's where, like, personally for me, it's like I didn't really buy any, but I know a lot of people that did buy quite a bit of it because they wanted those bounty cards because of, like, Rye Guy, as we all know up here, Ryan, he's the bounty guy. He likes trying to splash as much bounty into every Legion possible.
Yeah, and that's where, as I say, bounty is his absolute favorite set, Bountiful Harvest, right? That's the set he's open.
He loves that.
But that's the thing is that Ryan actually said something to me back a couple weeks back, and I never really thought about it this way, and it's really cool to hear. But I met him at Nerds, and we were going over some stuff, and he walks up to the counter. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna buy a Ravaged Lands box, right? And I was like, Ryan, you've opened like the most Ravaged Lands at anyone. So I thought. Nick's a different story, but
yeah, Nick, he's on a whole new level, man.
But Ryan's bought so much Bountiful Harvest or so much Ravaged Lands, and I said to him, like, what are you missing? Like, you have everything. You have the master set. And he's like, you know what, man? To me, this set is nostalgic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know that's crazy.
It's the first
because
set,
it's only been out for a year, right? It's only been out for a year, and now that it's out of print, to him, that's nostalgia. And that's so cool because I wouldn't think that after a year that nostalgia would already start to form, you know?
No, he's absolutely right. And I'll tell you, I can understand that because when I go into Guild Vault, or there was another store here that I don't frequent anymore, but they sell Legions as well. When I used to go into these stores, or I still do go in one of these stores, and I see like a pack of Ravaged Lands sitting there, it's like it takes everything in me not to just buy it. Yeah, it's like I'm like, it's only like $5, whatever. It's just to feed an addiction because I'm like, I love that set so much. Like I see Frontiers, I'm like, okay, I've opened all the Frontiers. Me, Caleb, and Opal we've bought a few boxes, but me and Caleb and Opal, we've bought way more Ravaged Lands, and we just like that set more. Like Pat said, it's our favorite set. And when I go into this Guild Vault and I see that packs, and I might go there to buy like sleeves or deck boxes for my cards. It like takes everything in me, just be like, okay, you don't need a booster box, you don't need a pack, you have everything you need, you're good. But it is so hard to walk away because it does have that. It's like it's that first set, and for me, it's nostalgic too because it's as a content creator that started doing this year with my 2 best friends, Opal and Caleb. we never, like we talked about it, we discussed it several times. We never anticipated that we would grow our channel the way we have in such a short time. We never thought that we would have companies interested in us that like us so much that they send us some stuff to check out. And Ravaged Lands was just that first box that a company like Future Lore Studio, because you guys didn't know me from Adam at the time. I didn't know who you guys were. But you guys sent me this box, and it was only because I said I didn't like the game. And you're like, okay, you don't like the game? Well, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to send you this booster set box. And it changed everything. It wasn't because I got the free product at the time. It was just because I was like, okay, this guy wants to change my mind. He's that confident in this game that he thinks he can change my mind. Because you guys know me. I'm very stubborn. I'm very hard-headed. I'm very opinionated. And I don't usually let people sway my opinions on things. But you did. When I busted that box open, and I started seeing more of what Ravaged Lands had to offer, what more this game had to offer, how you could change your decks and build them several different ways. Because you don't know buying the battle pack decks. You don't know that you can build it different ways because you're just getting the 2 decks, right? But when you start busting open these Ravaged Lands and these other sets, that's when you're like, okay. And that's what was nostalgic for me with Ravaged Lands, because that was the first product that a company that didn't know me or I didn't know in my content creating start sent me something, and I was just like, this is so awesome, you know what I mean? And we just formed a friendship, and I still, I can't say that Legion's Realms at War is perfect. There's no such thing as perfect in life and games, anything. There's always room for progression, and that's fine. That's we live and learn. That's why I tell my kids, you never fail if you've learned. If you fail and you don't try and you just give up, yeah, that's failure. But if you fail and you try to do something about it, that's just learning. You're not really failing.
Well, that's the thing is, Ravaged Lands is the set that started it all, right? It's the set that started our game. It's the set that started our friendships. It's the set that helped you form the YouTube channel that you wanted, right? It's the set that started it all, right?
Yeah.
And that's the nostalgia, and that's always going to be there. And that's the thing, like you said, learning from your mistakes, right? As a company, we learned that, the booster wraps, we didn't like that well in Ravaged Lands. So we moved forward and we upgraded the packaging for Bountiful Harvest. And that was a big flyer. We took a chance on it. It was a different style box. It was a different style glue pattern. It was a different style having print on the inside of the box. Booster wraps were a different material, but that was it was a big step forward for us in changing the way we did things, being such a new company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Frontiers, everyone loved the packaging on Bountiful, so we tried to do the similar thing with Frontiers. Everyone liked the box toppers in Bountiful, so we did the same thing with Frontiers, and we wanted to move it forward. And I think that when we go back to the nostalgia of Ravaged Lands at this point, that's where we feel Empires is going to be that as well.
Exactly, because
we have the big set size, but Empires, I'm proud to say that Empires is, to me, the set that launches the game. And
exactly.
What I mean, because we rebuilt the entire game in a single booster box.
Pat probably has to know that too, since he played this game and it's an infancy stage. Like what he said, he's playing on the back of Yu-Gi-Oh cards with paper. So he probably knows better than anybody how much Empires is going to change this game in so many different directions.
Well, so like Empires, from my understanding, is going to change a lot, but like I don't know a lot of what's coming in Empires. I know just as much as everybody else for the most part.
Oh,
this is true. So
Empires as a set's this is where it's like spoiler season. Like it's exciting, right? Because like I don't know what to expect. But I agree, like Empires is going to be another set like Ravaged Lands where it's going to have that nostalgic feeling for people because it's drastically going to change the game, right?
There hasn't been a boring set release. Even Bountiful Harvest, even though it wasn't my thing and it wasn't your thing, Pat, I was still excited for it because it was showing the growth of the game.
Oh, 100%.
which
Right.
I love seeing. But
Well, you see different things out of
Frontiers,
them,
man.
right?
Now that I look back at Frontiers, and I remember when it was first announced, that was the longest 3 months of my life. And I
Yes.
look back now and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
I'm like, okay, I have everything now, but that initial wait for that set release, man, dude, it was like every day. I even had a countdown clock on my Discord to remind me, okay, it's this day. But it was also the worst thing to do because I look at it every day and
Every day, and
get
you're just
so
like, "Are we not
depressed.
there yet?"
Yeah, I'd get so depressed and be like, well, today's
Well,
not the day.
Well, and that's every set for Legions, right? And like I agree, like Bountiful, you know what, wasn't a huge set for us, but like it's still exciting to see it come out, see what other people are doing with it, how is it changing the game, right? What do we have to do differently to combat against it, kind of thing, right? And that's where
Right.
it's like every set's going to change the game, right? So even for those people who aren't maybe as interested in that set, like it's still changing the game and still gets that excitement and that adrenaline going for people of like, all right, here we go, new set, new cards, what can we do?
Yeah, exactly.
I feel what Bountiful Harvest did for the game was exactly what I intended it to do, and I'm very happy about that. Is the fact that it was never designed to be a big set, and it was always designed to be an injection into the game that the game needed, as, for a lack of better words, it quality staple pieces that I had to lay a foundation for to build future sets off of. And I knew there was important characters like Ren Renegade and Kakabel and Serena Sada and Viviana. Like those four characters are so integral to the story. And Bountiful Harvest, like I said with Ravage Lands, we dropped you in the middle of the storyline. Bountiful Harvest was the first foray out of the war and into something peaceful.
Exactly.
But I refresh my memory because I'm not. The set size for Bountiful Harvest was
84 cards.
Was it 84 cards? Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I thought it was 90 something, but okay.
So it was the first step out of the Shroud of War and into what could be a better world for everyone. Yeah. And you enter into the town of Alberton, and this set was designed to world build in a very small way, was to show you a glimmer of this hub, this community, this town, this realm that is the pivotal point for all the surrounding realms. The place where the resources are rich, the magic is powerful, the characters mean so much and can influence and obstruct any of the other surrounding 8 legions. It was a necessary world building set, and at the same time, we brought in necessary key characters and key cards into the game that we could lay the foundations to build forward with.
Nice. All right, Pat. So I do have a 2-part question for you. So what do you like most about Legions, and what do you dislike about Legions Realms of War?
So that's a tricky one. Because there's so many things to like.
Well, the thing he dislikes is me.
I wouldn't say that. What do I like most about Legions? Well, so like as a card game, like I love the way that Legions plays. Like even between all the different Legions, like yes, I'm green-blooded, as Taylor likes to say, with my orcs. But I do play some of the other Legions on a much more lower, not nearly as frequent. I do have other decks. I don't only have orcs. Right, but like playstyle, gameplay, I love it. It's different, right? And that's one of the great things about Legions. Dislikes, and the other piece of the like is just the community that we've built, right? Like the community, like on the Discord and everything, like it's just everybody's friendly, and just the community overall is awesome.
Agreed, man. I have to caveat off that and say that when it comes to Legions Realms at War, it's not even the card game that I love the most. It's the community and the friendships I've made in such a short time. I'm one of those old timers that didn't grow up with internet. so we didn't have social media. We actually had to go out and make friends, like, you know, in person, ride bikes and stuff like that. Everybody can do it through social media now. And through, I never thought that I'd get to that part in my life where that's how I'd make friendships and meet what I consider family now. And that's one of the things that I love the most about Legion's Realms at War. It is hands down, you know, you hear it in all these other games that they have the best community. I'm in a lot of different discords for these games. I will tell you right now, Legion's Realms at War has the best community.
Oh, 100%. It's so open.
They are class. They're full of class. We don't sit around and, you know, sorry for the language, we don't sit around and shit talk other people. We don't shit talk other games. Legion's Realms at War is just full of class, and that's one of the things. And the community is too. Even if somebody tries to, like, you know, pull those coattails and try to get a rise out of you, we just go about our day. And that's something Legions has taught me as well, is to kind of dial back my temper, because I am one of those abrasive people that pop off really fast. And I'm like, okay, I'm not, I don't have anything to do with Future Lore Studios or this game, nothing more than just a fan of it. But I still watch myself telling myself, hey, you know, you're part of this community, so you can't go off the handle. You got to be respectful, because that's what Future Lore Studios and the Legion Realms at War community would want you to do. So hands down, I agree with you. The community is my absolute favorite part of this game. I love everybody in that Discord. I love everybody that's in my Discord, and me and Taylor and Ryan and Matt and all you other people. You're basically a family at this point in my life, which is crazy to me. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, definitely lots of new friendships and made through the community. Dislikes. That's a tricky one. Taylor might be all right. Part of the dislike might be Taylor, but
that doesn't come from the game. That just comes from years
Taylor,
of friendship.
I met Taylor for the first time at the beginning of the month, and I would tell you, or the end of last month, and I'll tell you that's not true. That is the most likable guy I've ever. My wife said after she met him, we went home, and she was just so surprised how nice everybody was. But she said something that didn't trigger until she said it. She's like, he reminds me so much of our son Sammy. Just so smart with the way they speak and things like that. Just just the nicest guy ever. And she was right. I was like, man, it did remind me of our oldest son Sammy. It just, you know, super cool dude. So I know that's not true. That can't be your dislike.
That could just be a Canadian versus US thing. Not to poke that bear. Dislike.
Do you feel it ever gets too
ban
repetitive?
list, watch list. You know, that could be part of my dislike at the moment.
We have nothing banned as of right now. There is nothing banned.
Watch list / suspended list, not the ban list. Just for the fact that, you know, the amount of orc cards that have ended up there.
Yeah, the ban list, it's one of my dislikes too. I think it's, for me personally, it's just a little too early for that stuff for me. I'd like to see like Empires and maybe another set come out, and then we start hitting that stuff up. Like the Veils, I could care less about those being restricted.
I get, well, and this is where, like, it's a dislike, but I sort of get where he's coming with it as well.
No,
because like like I hate seeing the orc cards on it, but like if we look at the orc cards that currently have been restricted, like Hits of the Outer Rim, Salvaged Pieces, like if those cards were still at 3, orcs would be very ridiculous.
Orcs are already ridiculous.
They
man.
are, yeah, but they would be like,
but even worse. But even worse though, right? Like Hits of the Outer Rim. Just think if I could play 3 copies of it in my deck versus the 1 copy I can't. Blow up 4 cards, mill 6 cards, blow up 4 on the field.
Well, I think
it's just disgusting.
I think it's a conception across multiple TCGs. you know, when you design a game, you have one of two options, right? You can go with the set rotation that things like Pokemon, Magic, and Force Will have done over the years, or you can go the eternal format route of like, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Flesh and Blood are doing, right? And to me, I've always hated set rotation, because what ends up happening with that is you either kill off player bases too early, you you incentivize the whole concept of the cash grab, right? I feel as though a lot of the games that rotate, it's like, hey, buy this product, and then in 4 months you can't play it anymore. Buy the new product, right? To me, that seems very scam-like. And where I'd rather, like, if you bought a product in the very beginning, like you did with Ravage Lands, you know, 10 years down the road, you can still play cards from Ravage Lands. Like, to me, that speaks volumes. And so when you have an eternal format game like we have, your only then other opportunity for making sure you keep an inevitable balance throughout your game is to have things like the restricted cards, or the limited cards. And you know, as much as we don't want to do things like that, but ultimately we're a small game, we're a small company, our testing team is very small, we work our butts off, and you know, like Ravage Lands, not a lot of people know, like, I built Ravage Lands 8 years ago, right? So, I mean, and I tested it over 7.5 years, just me and my best friend, right? So, like, it was two of us to test 260 cards, with the addition of, a lot of people think that our starter deck cards are same as Ravage Lands cards, are not, right? So, like, when we launched, we were just over 400 cards on launch, right? So those 400 cards in all of their variations and all of their play styles for each deck had to be tested thoroughly, and it was only two of us doing it. That's why it took so long, right? So when we look at cards going forward, our testing team increased when it came to Frontiers. You know, we added Ryan to the testing team, we added Nancy to the testing team. So our testing team was at 4 for Frontiers. So, and it being a smaller set, it made it a little more easier, right? And now, so moving into Empires, we added another tester in Jared. Jared came in to help us test Empires. So we were up to 5 people testing Empires on the Rise. And you know, we just recently added Pat here into the testing team, and AJ and Josh, since they're some of our premier players.
Oh, congratulations, guys! Awesome.
Yeah, we felt as though that they were some very key additions going forward. So they, like Pat said, he doesn't know anything about Empires because he didn't test it with us. But when it comes to Macabre, Masquerade of the Macabre will be the first set that Pat gets his hands on early to test, and along with AJ and Josh. And you know, some of our premier players like that, we felt as though that they were some of the best benchmarks, because if they're going to find the play lines and the combo lines that are broken in tournament play, those are the guys that are going to find it before it gets printed.
Well, don't try to dig too much into the werewolves. Just let them be. If you find them overpowered, just let it be, okay?
Well, talking about it, it's like me as the orc player, like I know that there's been some comments of like, do we really want Pat to test orcs? Because like, is Pat just gonna leave all the broken things in orcs?
He just kind of like shuffles them to the sides, like, nah, this is fine, this works.
Well, and this is the thing, is that, you know, we're not just bringing in people who are premier players to our game. Like, you know, I've known Pat for almost 10 years. I've known AJ for the same amount of time. You know, Josh is relatively new. I've only met him in the past year and a half through the game. Same with Ryan, right? A lot of people think Ryan and I have been knowing each other for a long time, and it's only been about a year and a half, you know? So the big thing with those guys is that I like to refer to them as my aces. You know, in every deck of cards, there's 4 aces. And to me, like, you know, Malik is always going to be there as my main lead of R&D and my main tester, but you know, Pat, AJ, Josh, and Ryan are my 4 aces. And I look at that because they each specialize in 1 to 2 decks. And so as a result, they can play those decks, they can hammer them out at a high level, find out all of the combo and play lines, and I can watch them pilot it and let them use their tournament brains to build the most competitive version of it. And then when they've tweaked it to the perfect point that could be broken or not, then I get them to swap decks, and they play with a deck they're not comfortable with, to see if the other person can break the finely tuned deck. And that's the thing is when I design and build cards, I build it from the top down. I build it with the highest power cards and move their way down. And like, so Pat's going to get to experience that when we get to Masquerade of the Macabre. But Empires on the Rise is coming first, man. And 8 new Warlords, 8 new Veil Realms, 8 new Synergies, 8 new Guardians. It's literally the new game in a box.
It's gonna be pretty mental, man.
It'll be amazing.
Can't wait.
So, Matt, you got any questions for Pat here before we wrap up this podcast?
What's your favorite card?
Favorite card by Syria.
You know, one of my favorite cards is actually a orc card, and I don't play the orcs often.
Mhm.
I mean, I just started
I
playing
can
them.
guess it. I can
guess it too.
We bleed for this.
It is absolutely the best card. It's such a beautiful.
The
card.
art on that is amazing. Right.
I'm going to tell you right now. I hate to. I go off subject. It's my thing. I do. The art on this game is absolutely crazy. I don't think there is a better game with art right now, in my opinion. That's my, like I say all the time, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, but in my opinion, the art on Legion's Realms at War is absolutely crazy. Like what we've seen through the Empires of Rise spoilers, Taylor's dropped already. Absolutely crazy, man. They are bringing the heat with this Empires on the Rise expansion coming out, man. It's crazy how great the art looks.
Well, and so I gotta ask now, Andrew. So you know who the 2 people are on We Bleed for this, right?
I wish I had it in front of me, but I don't. My brains doesn't work that way. Who is it?
Well, so number 1's Viseria.
I got it sitting here.
Number 2 is Sharn, right?
With Sharn.
With Sharn. Okay, yeah. Okay. I'm not good with names. Unfortunately, it's not my thing. I can't ever remember names.
I think the important part of the card We Bleed for this, and I know I harp on this and go back to it quite a bit, but I think it's the important part, is the flavor text on that card.
Flavor text has always been pretty rad on all the cards because it always just kind of dials into that lore more.
It goes right into that lore, right? And it's like you got all the characters talking to you through the flavor text of the cards and like telling you of things to come.
I don't know if it's for you, Pat or Matt or even Taylor. It drives me crazy when I'm in like other Discords or I hear other people say they could give a shit less about flavor text. It just irritates me so bad.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, dude, flavor text is one of my favorite things on cards. Like to me, it just doesn't feel the same without some kind of flavor text. Even if it's nothing like crazy, I just need it on that card. And Legion's Realms at War never disappoints with art or with flavor text. So kudos to you guys, man. Like
flavor text is the conduit for our game, really, right? Like I said, this story, these characters, the storyline has been with me for a decade. And, you know, it started out as a screenplay. You've heard me say that before. And, you know, I've never been that great at dialogue when writing screenplays, but when I could describe a story to you, have you close your eyes, I could describe a story and it makes you feel like you're in that story. And to me, with Legions, that's what it was to me, is the fact that, you know, I'm one guy, and up to this point in all of Empires, right? Like when Empires on the Rise releases at a 300 card set, we're going to be pushing past 1,000 cards in the game.
Wow.
And all 1,000 of those cards I built myself from the ground up. I had my guys test the game and tell me what's broken and what needs to be fixed or what needs to be turned up a little bit. But ultimately, the card mechanics, the card names, the characters, the storyline, the lore, everything was built by me. So that's 1,000 cards that I've done with no design help.
Mm-hmm.
And so on top of that, while trying to tell the story, so to me, the flavor text became that important crutch in the storyline because, you know, because I'm designing cards and designing sets and building hand-done algorithms for sets. I can't stress that enough, how important that is to build these hand-done algorithms so you make sure you get great pulls out of packs. I do all of that myself. So when it comes to the storyline, I don't get a chance to publish lore articles near as much as the way I want to, but just because my time is so stretched thin, right? So to me,
I was going to ask you there, as well before we finished if there's any timeline on us getting some actual new lore up.
Well, and that's the thing. So to me, the flavor text has been my conduit to get the lore to you guys, since I have to produce the cards anyways. And ultimately, I want to get more lore up. The hard part about it is my story is so diverse and so in depth with so many characters that these small characters that you very rarely hear about play such an important role in the storyline that I have to flesh out their storylines. And as a result, it compounds and makes this story huge.
Dude, the lore for this game is so great that I will say that whenever we were doing spoiler season for Frontiers, and I did that little video where I wrote for the heroes, I had to stop and record that a few times because I was getting so choked up because I felt like I was part of the heroes, and of course, like I've discussed, being a veteran, that's why I went with the heroes, because that's who I, just felt more in tune with as a deck. And when I was reading the lore for them, and then I decided to do that little video, like I just felt like a part of that legion. Like it was because I was reading so much of the lore and getting so into it.
Like I said, ideally, with going off what you said there, like I would love to continue to flesh out this lore for everyone, and it's challenging, right? Because y'all want cards, y'all want sets, y'all want spoilers, but y'all want lore as well, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like we always say, it's a want thing, but I'm not on the other end of how things are, so it's like we've had few people in the Discord community be like, well, I want tournament play. I'm like, hey man, you got to start somewhere, dude. Like you got to calm it down. Like I know that you want it, but what are you doing to get it? Like we all had to put in something to get tournament play going. We've all had to put in things like, Pat, you know better than anybody, man. You've been playing this game since the infancy stage. You know that better than anybody that without you maybe playing back then in that infancy stage, that maybe the game wouldn't be where it is. Everybody has to contribute some part when it comes to building this game. Like Taylor says, it's just a busy dude, man. Is with a small staff doing it by himself. Like,
100%. And that's where, like, for me, like it'd be nice to see some more lore, but I will take cards over lore personally.
Hey, I'm just happy with anything.
I will be honest, going back to, I don't mean to go back before we end the podcast, but I'm going to go back to my dislikes about Legion's Realms of War. I love the community, but that's one of the things that I dislike as well, is I do see a lot of people with the wants all the time. And as I always say, and you guys know how I am, I'm abrasive, I'm honest, I'm going to be transparent with people. What are you doing to get that? And that was one of my dislikes as well, is like the community has to put more effort into helping grow the game. We play it, we go to LGS, that's great, but let's start sharing that stuff on social media, start pushing the information out, start spreading the word of the Kickstarter. Taylor can't do it by himself. I only have so many people that follow me, so I can't do it myself. But can you imagine if the Discord community of hundreds of people each just hit the share button on a Facebook post, hit the share button on a Twitter post, Instagram post, whatever, how many people that would reach.
Exactly.
And that's what the community needs to start doing. Don't just go to it and look at it and be like, oh, that's cool. And at least hit that like button. At least, like I said, there's just right over to the right-hand side, there's this cool little arrow and it says share. And you don't even have to type anything. You just have to hit that button and boom, it's done for you. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I just wish the community was more active in helping growing the game. And that's just me with being honest as I can be.
No,
I don't want to piss anybody off.
Especially because like for some things, it doesn't take a lot, right? Like it's like there's pieces that people can do to easily help that it takes 10 seconds. Like you said, like you're reading that Facebook post that Legion's just put out or whatever. It's just like hit that share button, hit that like button. It takes you 10 seconds, and you've now pushed it out to potentially more people to see it and help grow and promote, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the thing, is that I have a hard time asking for, right? Like I don't want to ask anything from my community.
Why? I don't mean to cut you off, but why? Why should you feel bad for that, Taylor? You've shared this world with us. You've shared this game with us. You are putting so much time and effort into it. why would you feel bad about asking the community and your fans that love your game to do something like that? You should never feel bad to reach out to the community and ask them to do something like that. You have given us so much in this game. And I will say it. I've said it. You guys have heard me on my channel before. I am more passionate about Legions Realms at War because of the game that literally saved my life. When I was in a very low part of my life, and I'll talk about it, and I was very suicidal, I was looking for something, anything to give me a little spark of something in my life. And it just so happened to be that day, Legions Realms at War came across on a Facebook post of all things of a video. And my wife's like, hey, well, my wife knew I was having a rough time. She's constantly concerned with me with that stuff. And we went up to the store and bought that game. And I did some videos on it. Wasn't a big fan of it. Taylor reached out, sent a box, and I just grew to love this game more. So the game literally saved my life. You literally saved my life. So why can't I just go and hit a share button? Why can't I go and like something? Why can't I ask community to do something like that? You should never feel bad to ask community to help you out with all the work that you put into it.
I agree with you. I do, and maybe it's the Canadian in me. I'm not sure.
I think you all are too nice, man. You all are too nice, man.
I think it's not even just a Canadian thing. It's just a Taylor thing. Taylor, as a Canadian, doesn't like asking those kinds of things of people because it's not really just an us kind of thing to ask that. But I think it's just Taylor's a person.
He's humble.
He's humble. He's persistent.
He's what I call in the military, or what we call people in the military, a quiet professional. Is somebody that just puts in all the work but never asks for anything in return, never wants accolades, just wants people to enjoy the game. He's 100%. A quiet professional. 100%.
Well, and that's Taylor, right? Taylor does this for the passion of seeing people enjoying playing the game, right? That that's what Taylor loves seeing, right? Is people enjoying playing the game that he created and the world that he created. And this is where Taylor doesn't want to ask for help. He just wants people to be able to enjoy it.
Well, when Taylor doesn't ask for help, I have to go and make videos to where I break down and look like a giant sissy in front of everybody. And I can't keep making videos like that. So
well, and this is, like I said, it's a double-edged sword for me, right? Because ultimately I don't like to ask things of people because, like you said, the quiet professional, right? Like you said earlier too, like our community is so good at we don't shit talk anyone. We don't say anything bad, And to me, I have always been a proponent and always believed that if you want it bad enough, you work for it, right? And I never came from a lot as a kid. I got some good family support now in this endeavor, but is that ultimately I don't like to ask a lot from the community because you guys are already supporting us. You're already buying boxes. You're doing what you can right now to keep the dream alive, but at the same time, especially hard now in the times that we're in economically, but it's just the fact that it's the growth that we need.
Yeah. It's
not even necessarily the indulgence of product. It's the growth that we need. And that's why we took what we had, and we were going to originally stay clear of Kickstarter, but we understand that that's a tool in the toolbox that we just have to access.
Absolutely.
We have to use. It's a mass marketing tool in a world where people don't read magazines anymore. They don't read newspapers anymore. There's no billboard advertisements anymore. You have to have a different media, and your social media, like you said, Andrew, it only reaches so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And we only have so many followers. You only have so many followers. So if I can ask anything from the community, for you guys in this room talking with us right now, for everyone listening on the podcast, first of all, thanks for listening and thanks for tuning in this long. But it's the matter of, like Andrew said, hit that share button. We got a Kickstarter launching. It's our biggest and best set yet. It is everything. Empires has been with me for 6.5 years. I'm tired of looking at it. I want to get it. I want to get it in everyone's hands so they can look at it and enjoy it.
He just wants it out so he does. It's not the thorn in his side anymore, is what he wants. He just wants it to be done.
The art is phenomenal in this set. Our artist did an amazing job. We have so much cool things coming in this set. I have so much I want to share with the community. Macabre is almost finished already. You know, like we're going to be moving into testing, and we're going to be moving testing into Macabre in January. Well, the Kickstarter is going on in January. We are testing Macabre, and Empires is being put to print. Like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving pieces. But if I can ask anything from you guys and ask anything from the community, like Andrew said, you know, this is gonna be the first time hearing it from me. Share it.
Yeah.
Tell people,
Sure.
tell your friends, tell your family. Ask
Tell
them
your
instead.
LGS. Tell everybody, man.
Instead of asking.
Tell your 90-year-old grandma. I don't care. Maybe she'll
Yeah.
like TCGs. I don't know.
You know, most of us, Matt is a little younger, but most of us are in the position where, you know, we don't really get Christmas presents anymore. So instead,
my wife spoils me, bro. I get Christmas presents every year.
I was gonna say, instead ask Santa to give you some money for Kickstarter. You know, set it aside and put it in. I'm telling you right now. You can only see this Kickstarter launch page. Make sure you hit that, say that notify me on launch. But I'm gonna tell you right now, before it goes to launch, the deals that we have on this Kickstarter page, you're not gonna find anywhere else. You're not gonna find in your LGS.
I've already hit notify, and I already plan on backing. I don't know what tier I'm going to choose, but I already know I'm backing because I have to give back to the game that gave to me so much. So
exactly,
and that's what I'm saying. Like if you're a part of the community and you're a fan of the game, give back to the game that's given to you so much. It's put so much work in for you to love it. So you don't have to hit that super high tier.
No, not at all. But I'm telling you right now,
hit that tier or hit one of those tiers. Support the game. I mean. I get it, man. It's rough times for everybody, but if you can't afford to, hit it. Let's do it. Let's make this game what it is and the best out there. So
we're making sure that you get the best deals possible. So we want to have the great deals for the new players. So an easy entry into the game. I mean, a single Empires booster box. You have a 93% chance of building a deck right out of the box at a booster box.
That's the thing that I wanted to talk about was this is the set that if you are just now going to get into this game, this is the best set to buy because you're going to have the possibility to pull the Warlords, Synergies, Guardians, everything you need, which we didn't get at the start of this game. This is the set you want to get into right now. So
exactly, for new players, this is the set you want to get into, and we're offering it $20 less than you're going to see it at an LGS per box. So, and that's going to multiply over the tiers, and it's going to get cheaper per box the higher your tier goes up. So we're going to reward not only the new players that want to invest the time, money, and energy into something new that looks awesome and incredible, but we're going to reward the existing players because you're going to be able to get way more product for cheaper than you normally would. And it's our biggest set yet. At 24 packs per box, 15 cards per pack, it's 360 cards in a box. None of our sets have ever been that big.
All I hear right now is take my money.
And you got LGS tiers coming up for LGSs.
We do. We have 3 LGS tiers for small, medium, and large game stores. Even the large game store LGS, I was actually talking with Nerds, the owner of Nerds Cafe, tonight about it, and he said he might just pledge 2 at that at the highest tier because it's still so affordable.
So if Nerds has it, I'm just going to throw this out there for everybody. I don't mean to promote this on the podcast, but if Nerds does have product, and even if you're in the United States or you're there in Canada and you're close to Nerds, or you have a computer with internet or a phone with internet and you go to Nerds Cafe, you can actually go there and buy all Legion's Realms at War product, singles and sealed, and you can get 10% off by using Roll4 Initiative promo code. So everybody needs to remember that. Like if you're having a hard time finding the game, Nerds Cafe is probably the place to go, and you can get a 10% discount on all Legion's Realms at War stuff. So
that's true. They ship international, and you know, and if you're American buying from Nerds, remember there's the currency exchange, so your dollar is worth way more than ours is. So you're saving money. You're going to be saving money hand over fist. So absolutely. So I'll make sure that when we air this podcast that
Matt and me will sit down and do some editing, and we'll put all the links to that stuff in the description of the podcast, so everybody has access to the Nerds website, the Legion's website. All that stuff's already going to be on there, but we'll make sure we put all that information in there for people with the promo code and everything. Because I know.
So one thing I was going to say before we go, I want to make sure, Andrew, you know it best out of any of us. Where are they going to be able to find this podcast and future podcasts?
Okay, so this podcast is going, and all future podcasts are going literally everywhere. It's going to be on Apple. It's going to be on Google. It's going to be on Spotify. If it's a podcast site, it will be there. I already have the platform that we're using. As soon as me and Matt do the editing, as soon as we hit that launch button for this episode, it will literally already hit all those automatically. We don't have to do anything. It will go to every single podcast site there is.
So you're going to be able to find us in the Legion's Lounge on all of the different podcast sites. And Stitcher's one of them too, right? I believe you said.
It
right?
is. Yeah, so, I have the list.
And iHeartRadio.
Anything that you think of. If you have a phone and it has a podcast app on it, we will be on there. If you have a computer and it has a podcast, it will be on there. Spotify, like I said, Apple, Google Play, we will be on all of it. So
something great to listen to over a long winter while you're.
I know everybody probably gets really bored looking at mine and Opal and Caleb's faces during content on YouTube, and we wanted to try to expand. I personally want to try to expand what I do to new realms, which was doing a podcast with who better than the creator of Legion's Realms at War and the creator of a game than Taylor Howe, and the help of Matt Waller, our producer, who's been an incredible help with me with this podcast and other things when it comes, and then having awesome guests like Patrick and whoever we may have on in the future. I just want to expand what we do to help grow the game in every way that we can, whether it be through podcast or streaming videos or whatever we have to do. So hitting that share button on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, expand the game, grow the game, be the community that we need to be, and help. So like I said, share. Like I said, we'll be on all platforms for podcasts. So,
well, Pat, do you want to add anything?
No, I think it's just everything's already been said that I think I can think of. Thanks for having me on, and I can't wait to see who else you guys bring on as guests. And
hey, you're guest numero uno, buddy.
Apparently I was at the top of the list.
You were the top of the list. You were absolutely top of the list. How many tournament wins do you have, Patrick? Just off of curious.
Not as many as AJ.
Well,
there you go.
We know that.
So, and this is where it gets a little funny. So for large scale tournaments, I have 0.
Okay.
For weekly events, which are smaller tournaments, weekly, have I hit double digits?
I believe weekly.
I was going to say 7.
I was going to say, I think you're at 7.
I was going to say 7, somewhere in around there.
Nice. I have 0. I have not got to play in a tournament yet because I'm always busy pushing the game or doing content on it. I didn't even get to play in the Siege Series tournament, which I was a little bummed out about, but that's the price you pay when you're a content creator and you want to help grow the game and you want to be there for the community. I had to do what I had to do, and that was bow out for the tournament and do what I had to do. But
2023
I'm hoping to make
Siege
it down
Series
for the
is coming
next
back.
one.
Yep,
I know. I'm hoping to make it down for the next one, and I really hope that you can get to play in the next one, and maybe.
Hopefully the year's not too busy for me, and I'll be able to make this one. And actually, I'll probably hand the reins over to somebody else, one of the other cohorts, Caleb or Opal, and have them do content since they got to play in the last one. At least a couple of the cohorts got to play, but. That's okay. When the next one comes out, it's going to be there anyways. Werewolves probably. So I'll wait for the good stuff.
No. We'll hand the Opal's already qualified.
Yep.
She got her top 8 invite. We'll hand the content reins over to Opal. Like I said, Legions is we're coming back to America strong next year. So
and that's the other thing too. We will be doing every other week starting January. We're going to be doing probably one final video on our YouTube channel this month. We're only gonna have time for one video. It's going to be a best of kind of all the games we've covered, and then we're going to start fresh in January, with the holidays coming up. And we'll be actually doing our live streams every other Thursday at Guild Vault, probably live streaming the tournaments there and stuff, so for Legion. So that should be exciting, something new that we don't do a lot of.
That does sound
We don't
awesome.
get to do a lot of gameplay videos on our YouTube channel because we're usually just reviewing and talking about the games. But I think that with the next new year coming, we wanted to try to change it up and do some things differently and actually get some gameplay in all these games that we play. So like I said, every other Thursday we'll probably be at Guild Vault, and you guys will get to watch me as I try to grow that community and get those numbers up at that tournament for the next tournament. So,
well, like I said, we're gonna try and make our America big and badass next year. So we've already applied to Gen Con in Indianapolis for August.
I'll be there.
So hopefully we get accepted, and they're looking at us for a booth for Entrepreneur Alley as well there. So that could be something pretty big for us. It's the largest gaming convention in North America. So if we get the accepted for that, you'll definitely see us at Gen Con.
I'll see you there because it's only 4 hours from me. So
that's awesome. And even as I said, even before that too, right? We have some great American stores that are already playing tournaments. Guild Vault being our biggest for tournament turnout so far, but we also have some works with some other stuff. We got a really interested player and getting a community working on right now in St. Louis, Missouri. We have another player and interested party working on a store out in Flemington, New Jersey.
Who's St. Louis?
St. Louis is Magdalene Games in St. Louis.
Send me their info. They're only about 3 hours from me, and I constantly go to St. Louis. We drive that way to go home, actually. So I'd love to stop in there.
Yeah. So like I said, we have a community member that's working there. We have one that's in our Discord that's working on a store in Flemington, New Jersey, and we have another one that's working on a store now in Dallas, Texas. So the growth is happening, and it starts with that one community champion, and that's why we have our Legion's Fan Ambassador program that I haven't seen any other TCG do, and I think that's an untapped market that we want to capitalize on and support and reward the players that support us. So
we'll definitely talk about that more on the next podcast, because we'll talk about the ambassador program on one of the upcoming podcasts, because I think it's something really important to talk about, because it is such a unique idea that no other TCG's done. So I think that it's definitely important to talk about that. So we will definitely talk about that for sure.
Anything lastly you want to add, Matt? Anything else before
I think I'm all good.
All right.
Well, I appreciate everybody listening. Again, Pat, thanks so much for being part of the show tonight and hanging
thanks
out
for having
with
me,
us.
guys.
And yeah, absolutely, man. And Taylor, thanks so much for being here. It's awesome to have a podcast where you actually get to sit down with the creator of the game and pick his brain a little bit with guests and stuff. So I appreciate you for being here as well. And Matt, my producer, my main man, I could not do this podcast without you. I appreciate everything that you've done for me, man. Absolutely amazing guy. Staple in the Legions community too, Matt is. So does a lot for the community. So I appreciate everybody. And like I said, you can find us on all podcast platforms, and we will be back with another episode next week. So thanks again, everybody.
Thanks for watching episode 2 of Legion's Lounge.
Yep.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
everybody
everyone.
have a great night.